Good morning, everybody. Let's get into this decode. This is from the show called HELIX. Now, this aired in 2014, before Grump was even thinking about running for president, long before CV-19. Yet what you're about to see in this first montage that I put together, and I've got also several other montages that I'm working on as well, is very specific pre-programming for events that had not happened yet. Now, I'm going to make sure we're connected, and then we're going to get into this decode. But while we're doing that, let me give you the backdrop for this series to get you guys up to speed. So we're going to call it the seed, and you guys know what I'm talking about. It's called to the Arctic base, and they're asked to come in and come up with a cure for an outbreak that is happening up in the Arctic base. There's 120 people on the base, and the base is actually shaped like an iris. Now, that number 120 is loaded because 40, 40, and 40 is 120. Now, many of you will recognize that number, 120, because that's the number of years that God limited man's age to after the flood. 120 years, he said his spirit would contend with man. So why is 40 repeated 3 times? Well, it all started with a series of 3 different events in biblical history that seem not to be related, but if you really think about it, they really are. It started with the 40 days and nights of the flood, and then the 40 years in the wilderness after the Exodus, and finally, Yeshua's or Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness. That is 40, 40, and 40, the 120 years. And you'll recognize that each of those events that I just recounted to you all included water and submersion. So now that we know we're connected, let's get into this montage. So the seeds show up, and to get base access and account for everybody in the base, they all have to accept this microchip in their left hand. Watch this.
Please stick out your left hand. RFID marker injected under the skin. We all have them. Yours will give you unrestricted access to the base.
Main elevator security access granted.
Skin. We all have them. Please stick out your left hand. RFID marker injected under the skin. We all have them. Yours will give you unrestricted access to the base.
Main elevator security access granted.
As unlikely as cutting off a man's hand to access his.
So I'm not sure how the sound came through on that. It sounded a little like not loud enough. Let me play it back and look at the sound levels just to make sure we got this right.
Please stick out your left hand. RFID marker injected under the skin.
Looks like it's okay.
Yours will give you unrestricted access.
So you heard him talking about this RFID chip for access to the base. And what you're going to hear next is this guy, he's the leader of the base, he runs the base, and he talks about a particular situation that happened in which one of these zombies cut off somebody's hand and used the chip to access some of the base that he couldn't get access to.
Main elevator security access granted.
As unlikely as cutting off a man's hand to access his RFID chip.
Peter gave himself up.
So, of course, that's a reference, a direct biblical reference to the verse that says, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And, of course, that's mockery because they're doing it in the left hand instead of the right hand. You see how all this is backwards? This is like backwards world. So, the infection begins to spread, and the crew is looking for answers. And as they begin their investigation, they find out that there is way more to this base than meets the eye. Now, in this next scene, you're going to see this doctor finds cages full of rats, and none of them have any private parts. And isn't that weird? Because we've been hearing all these reports of shrinking private parts. Listen.
They have no sex organs.
Makes control easier.
Got an ex-husband I wouldn't mind trying that on.
We've designed a way to inhibit the signaling pathway responsible for genitalia. Where are the
They inhibited the pathway responsible for private parts. unreal. So, of course, this is all about CRISPR and gene editing and pathways and all this.
Where are the monkeys?
We don't have any monkeys.
Kidding, right? With the kind of work you're doing here?
No monkeys means no monkeys.
These are the other 2 victims that were found with Peter.
Open the bag.
Now, this part's crazy because as people start getting infected and they start dropping out, they find that their internal organs deteriorate into a black goo. Now, we've been researching this black goo for many, many years, and our best assessment to date is that what this black goo consists of is ancient fallen angel Nephilim DNA. Now, if you think that sounds ridiculous, the ancient Egyptians stored their DNA, and they were, of course, of the Nephilim bloodline. We tracked those bloodlines post-flood all the way through history, and they basically stored their DNA in these vessels called canopic jars so that they could wait out the millennia to infect mankind in the last days. So all of these victims began oozing this black goo, and this is how they infect one another. It comes out of their mouth, and they it's almost like a kiss of death, and they'll basically shove their mouth onto someone else's mouth, and then they infect them.
What the hell?
Now, I didn't show some of the more graphic scenes, obviously, but just know that this series is very, very graphic, but you don't need to see all that. Now, this goo has many, many forms, and it can be altered to be weaponized. Now, my friend Nicholson, 1968, discovered that also this goo could be like programmable matter. And understand that that's also a metaphor. Even if it is programmable matter, that's also a metaphor for the black goo. It's basically deteriorated fallen DNA, and it turns black or blue, the blue bloods. Black is really blue. Like if you look at the ink in a squid, it's blue when you dilute it out, but it looks black. So that's what the blue bloods are all about. And of course, squids have hemocyanin blood. It's a copper-based blood, and it is cyan means blue. So that's what's going on. Now in this next scene, you're going to actually see a real spike protein. Now understand that viruses come in different shapes and sizes. Here are some of the different shapes and sizes of common viruses. And as you can see, this spherical, we're going to call it Sharona. Okay, a Sharona virus is only one of about 9 to 10 different shapes. So why does this particular shape keep showing up in these films over and over again, which is specific to the Sharona virus? This is weird. It's almost like they knew. Now understand again that this series came out in 2014, long before any of this was being talked about. So what you're actually looking at in this scene is a Sharona. Now, what are the odds of all the viruses that they could have depicted? They show this one. Now, watch this next scene, because what you're going to see next is a 5G whiz right next to this Sharona. And the placement is very intentional. You can draw your own conclusions as to why. All I can do is show you what they're showing us. Also, you see 322 backwards, skull and bones, of course, and you see the Wi-Fi signal. Now, as I said, this is an Arctic base. So we get this sub-zero aspect to this, which is what the V scene needs to stay at to work. So we're told. Well, in the series, the virus disease progresses, but it also is halted in sub-zero temperatures. So again, you got this mirroring of meanings in the series. It's halted from the cold, but we're, with the V scenes, we've got something different going on, right? See the proximity? This is very intentional. You got the Sharona next to the signal. So I don't know how all this is going to play out, but all I know is this looks very intentional to me. Now, we've all heard the term essential workers countless times over the last year. Powers that be deciding who gets to stay open and who doesn't, sealing the fate for countless small businesses while empowering the large corporate entities.
Seal off this part of the base. All non-essential personnel, keep them in dedicated safe rooms. Nobody travels unless they travel with a partner.
Wait, there's more.
Now, in the series, these little snakes, they're like little snake-like entities. They embed themselves into the Sharona spike, and they alter the DNA. And what this is the serpent and the egg symbolism. We call it the Orphic egg. Let me let this play out, and then I'll show you some clips. See the little serpents going into the egg? Let's play that again. So I'm going to freeze it there. Look at the snakes going into the egg. So, what is this? It's serpent in the egg symbolism. The Orphic egg. Now, I've shown this to you guys before. This is the hermaphroditic deity, Phanes, also known as Pan. Remember when Jesus was at the foot of Mount Hermon? Pan's grotto, to be exact. Look at this. The egg is often depicted with a serpent-like creature, Ananke. Sounds kind of like Anunnaki, doesn't it? Zeus. Hermaphroditic. Remember the rats with no sex organs? The cosmic egg. Well, Jesus knew he was of the pure seed line, and that's why he was at the foot of Mount Hermon at Pan's grotto. He was juxtaposing or contrasting himself to the serpent seed line. And that's why he asked Simon Barona what his identity was. Simon said, "You are the Messiah." So there's something to this. Now, we've seen this Orphic egg before. The very first mention of this is in the Bible. It's the first prophecy of the Bible about the serpent bruising the woman in the heel. The woman is the egg. The serpent is trying to infect the egg. And he has to a certain extent. But here's the scene from iPet Go 2. And we were the first ones to identify this scene and identify it being about V-scene production. The backlit egg used to culture V-scenes. It's about the serpent inserting itself into humanity. And look at these images that are almost exact duplicates of what you're seeing in iPet Go 2. The backlit egg. This is how they produce fluoro V-scenes. Look at this image here. The light shining through the egg. Now, you can't make this up, and only some V-scenes are cultured this way anymore. Some were cultured in monkey kidneys. We're going to talk about that soon. Others were cultured through we can't even say that word anymore, the child cells from the 1960s. But I think we can all agree that what we're looking at here in the culturing of V-scenes is a match to the scene in iPet Go 2 that, of course, came out in 2012. And so there is no mistake that this was all coming. They had planned all of this. Now, this is by far probably one of the most chilling discoveries I think we've made on this channel, because these children are used to culture some vaccines. In fact, I think one of the vaccines that people are currently taking is actually cultured this way still. I don't remember which one, but there you see. Now, what is this that they're doing here? Well, I got some new information on this for those of you that want to further research this. This is called candling, egg candling. And they backlight the egg. It's a chicken egg. Reminds me of some kind of a crystal ball, like a spirit seance or something. Unreal. And remember, the animation I Pet Goat 2 came out in 2012, long before all this happened. Now, as you're about to hear next, it's all about the virus sending a message to the DNA. Sounds to me like a messenger RNA. Let's watch.
What the hell is that?
This mutation only occurs in a fraction of the samples. It's minimal, but it's statistically relevant.
My God.
We thought it was just replicating, but there's something else.
I heard these germ docs over at Fort Detrick talking about using viruses to move DNA around.
Gene delivery vehicles?
But what's it doing to him?
For lack of a better term, it's changing him.
Into what?
Yeah, that was it. What if this virus is acting like a freight train pulling some weird-ass DNA behind it?
Someone designed this virus. Never seen this combination before.
What's the message? Can you tell what they designed it to do?
No. But I can find out. Looking at the hand of man here. Proteins specifically designed to bind the virus to specific cells so it can deliver its genetic message. And there's some other monkey business. I think Dr.
Now, about this time last year, we started decoding Planet of the Apes films as they related to the simian flu of the polio spamdemic. And actual monkey DNA infected polio vaccines. I'm going to show that to you. So you know I'm not making that up. We're going to actually cover that as well. Here it is right here. Polio vaccines, simian, which means monkey, and human cancer. The evidence for a causal association. This was going on in the 1960s, and it had contaminated 30% of the poliovirus vaccines in the U.S. The contamination arose because the vaccines produced in monkey kidney cells were harboring SV40, which is the simian flu. Between 1955 and 1963, during this period, approximately 90% of the children, 60% of adults in USA were inoculated for polio and possibly exposed to it. And this particular study says there may be a connection to cancer. So, in breaking down the Planet of the Apes, we discovered something very interesting. And that is that when you wear a mask, you look like an ape. It's covering your mouth. And apes look like they have a mouth covering. Unbelievable. We are now living on a planet of apes. So, let's play this out.
I'd like to hear about. She's in the advanced stages, but got her tranked up on monkey juice. Took me a long damn time to haul her ass up here.
So, in the film, the Planet of the Apes films, the mask or muzzle is used to quiet Charlton Heston. He's the human, and they put a muzzle on him so he can't speak. Except it's the monkeys that are not supposed to be able to speak, but they muzzle him. Think about what monkeys' faces look like and why. A monkey's face looks like it's wearing a mask or a muzzle because God did not allow them to speak. So the enemy is getting revenge. He's like, okay, I'll just mask the world. And that's exactly what he did. a world of apes, mask-wearing faces. We are now living in Planet of the Apes. All this is spiritual. Now understand that this is one of the only scenes in the series where they wear a mask, because they discover that the virus is not airborne. It's one of the only scenes. The rest of the scenes, they just wear the face shields. But they wanted to make the connection between monkeys and masks. So the reference is definitely intentional. And what you're going to see next is this wide aerial shot of the base. And it is, in fact, the shape of the iris or the pupil. And we discover that that is really the gate to hell. Make sure we're connected. Here's though we are. Let's keep going with this. We've been studying the eyeball anatomy for a very long time. And there it is right there.
But if people aren't showing
so, I don't know what's up with the volume on here. Let's see if we can fix this. Having volume issues today. So in this next scene, or this episode, they developed this rapid test. Problem with the rapid test is it kicks out a bunch of false positives, but they don't seem to care. And is all this sounding familiar? Watch.
symptoms yet, how do we know who's infected? But if people aren't showing symptoms yet, how do we know who's infected?
We'll need a test.
But first, we need to synthesize a pure sample of the virus.
Both viruses. Something we can administer quickly.
A rapid response test would be the fastest.
Neither Narvik A nor B show up as a pathogen in any existing database.
Another false positive.
Me too, I've gone through all the atypical enzymes.
The Sarja treatment has never been tested on humans.
Now, this part here, this is interesting because they go with a cure that's untested, which is starting to sound very familiar. mRNA technology has never been tested on humans before. We are the test.
Atypical enzymes.
The Sarja treatment has never been tested on human beings. Not once.
I wish we had time for testing, but we don't. That doesn't mean it won't work. It's a universal antiviral.
Killing a human being with an untested treatment, it's unconscionable. It's unlikely that the patient will regain consciousness or be able to maintain his own life without the ventilator.
Now, of course, we had the ventilator meme last year, and billions of dollars of ventilators were made, and a lot of companies got rich. The question is where are they now? So in the series, a lack of oxygen is the theme. They're not getting enough air. Suffocation. Is all this starting to sound familiar? There's one part where they quarantine these people down in the lower levels, and the people don't want to be quarantined, so they cut off the oxygen levels in the rest of the lab. Then there's another scene where the patient zero is put into this biosuit and filled with oxygenated liquid. So you get that suffocation aspect. So they really want you to think about and get triggered over suffocation, which is what people are triggered over now. They're so afraid to get CV-19 and not be able to breathe. It's all manifesting right now. Now in this last scene, you're going to see the face visors.
People who design this virus want to change us. This scares the crap out of me. There's some trait that they want us to manifest. And this disease is a way to force it in. From the inside out. I mean, I'll be perfect, but I like what I am. We're not infected yet. Stop whoever's doing this before they cause any real damage.
This place is it's a time bomb waiting to go off, and we're pretending this damn things are gonna save us.
So here's the full show that I promised. It is Friday. Now, if you think this episode was loaded, wait until you see the next montage I'll be releasing tonight. We're going to do a full show on that montage Monday morning. The next montage gets even more specific. The woman who opened the body bag earlier in this montage, she shares the same birthday as Grump. And guess how old she is now? 33. So this was clear foreshadowing of events that had not happened yet. So now that you've seen some of the evidence, let's look at the poster for the series. And it depicts a hybridized cornfield. We know corn is GMO. And then you've got Christ as a scarecrow. But if you look deeper into this poster, what you're really looking at is the pure blood of Christ versus the hybridized blood of the enemy. The caption says, "Play God, pay the price." So that's the show for today. I'm going to go back in the chat just for a minute to see how the sound was. I could barely hear the sound through my earbuds, but the sound levels seem to be okay coming through the stream. So give me a heads up and just let me know how that sound was. I don't know what happened to our sound today. I checked all my connections. I don't know what's going on, you guys. Always technical difficulties, aren't they? All right. Now we'll be back on here. Like I said, I'll upload the second montage. I've got it here, but I'm not done. I got some more editing to do. Here's the back end of the edit. And this is a series of about 30 different clips. So this is the back end. This is what we work on every single day. This is what I do for you guys. And when I say we, I'm talking about all of us together. You guys send me information. I feel this is a team channel. So this is about 20 different clips, and I've edited them, recorded them, edited them, and then I bring them into Movie Maker. I'll add music sometimes, and I'm back and forth on the sound. Sound was okay. Sounds good. Okay, good. Sound was good. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So basically, we'll upload this montage. I'll finish up the editing on it. I'll get it uploaded. We'll do like an afternoon show maybe, or an evening show. Probably in like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours. And then at that point, we'll do that in a full show on Monday. That'll be like our first show on Monday. I love each and every one of you. Have a great day. Take care.